If you're in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of the Ron and Don Show, and we are back live in the Ron and Don Real Estate Studios.
What is up, Ron and Don Nation?
Hey, coming up on the Ron and Don Show, we got the top 5 at 5, and then after that, we got to talk about AI, because kids are in school, going to school right now. Think about this. Their parents are spending like $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 for a year of school, and in the middle of it, kids are freaking out and going, I think AI just took the job that I'm supposed to get 2 years from now. So I tell you what, kids right now, it's really difficult, and I'm having a lot of discussions with my kid. You're really having to retool on the fly, look in the future, and say, what kind of job will there be there? What kind of job will be there for me? So talk about that, and then also Felix Bunnell is going to be stopping by, and Felix is a local historian. He's going to talk about the Memorial Stadium, which is finally getting rebuilt, and I want to know about that because we're trying to get kind of a smaller stadium built for the kids at Lincoln. We had a big meeting over the weekend. I'm going to let it sit a little bit. We'll talk about it on next week's show because I have a lot to share about what's happening at Lincoln, but I'm waiting for an email to come back. We'll see if it comes back from the superintendent who was there, and it was packed. The house was packed. It was very, very cool. And over 250,000 people have been reading about this online. So thanks to everybody for that. And we'll reset that story next week if you don't know what we're talking about. So, but he's going to be, we're talking about our field, Lincoln Field, a little bit, but mostly about Memorial. He's also a little upset right now that Gassert's Park is going to get a haircut. So we're going to talk about that. And then also it's a big day in the Ron and Don Nation because it's the 20-year anniversary of something. He's going to share what the 20 years are. And you didn't even know that, did you?
It was 20 years ago today that Sergeant Pepper taught the band to play.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
All right. Top 5 at 5. Let's go.
Ron and Don's top 5 at 5.
5, 3, 2, 1.
All right, here we go with the top 5 at 5. And I have to say, after they're having the White House dinner and the shooting, everything that happened a couple days ago, I'm having a really hard time finding people, even journalists that were there, that believe that it wasn't a hoax. Like so many people that I know that are on the right and left, people that I know that are not even conspiracy people, they feel like some type of hoax happened. And whenever you look at a hoax, I think you say to yourself, okay, well, who would benefit from the hoax? And I've had a hard time figuring out how this president would benefit from the hoax. It seems to me like it's just a bunch of bumbling fools. We have a bunch of bumbling fools, and I'm not talking about our military and the men and women in the military that have been sent to places like Iran. They're not bumbling fools at all. But the people that are in charge of them, and who is in charge of them, because everyone that was in charge of them that wasn't a bumbling fool, they've been fired by Pete, right? So the question becomes, if this is a hoax, who benefits? I don't see how the president or the president's staff, I don't see how they benefit from the hoax, because this makes them look totally incompetent. Because think about this. If you're an Iranian right now and you're like, that guy, there was one of him with no training and he got that close. What if there was 20 of us there? And we're suicide bombers, or we're suicide runners, or we're over there and we have 20 drones in the sky. If you can't stop a drone attacking a warship, how do you stop a drone from showing up at the White House? Or how do you stop a drone from showing up at a motorcade? Or how do you stop a drone from showing up at a stadium on a Saturday or Sunday? And I hope to God that never happens, but how do you stop that? It is very clear that the U.S. cannot. Because evidently you have to have a $3 million or a $4 million or a $5 million missile called a Patriot, which we're out of now because we fired most of them in the Middle East, to stop a $20,000 drone. And it's really interesting when you hear Zelensky talk about the drone makers in Ukraine and also the Russians who make drones not only in Russia, but also in Iran. the reason why that war is not going anywhere and it's just stuck is because of drones. Because of cheap drones. Like a cheap drone can take out one of our M1A1 tanks. A cheap drone can take out a fighter. A cheap drone can take out a $35, $50, $100 million plane, whether it's sitting on the ground or flying in the sky. And so I saw this, and I just, after everything this country has been through, especially when it comes to the security of our presidents and and you think about some of the great ones like Lincoln, and what happened to him. You look at that and you go, well, he had one guy that was with him. The Secret Service didn't exist then. People walked in and out of the White House like it was a homeless shelter, because it was. And he had one guy, security guy assigned him. That guy was getting a drink at Ford Theater, and that's when Lincoln gets shot. Since the early 1900s, it's supposed to be much different. And here you are at the hotel where Reagan got shot, and then how does Trump get shot or shot at? Your thoughts on this being a hoax?
The interesting thing on the hoax thing is how do people be surprised? How are people surprised when for the last 12 to 15 years there has been a coordinated effort to discredit the media, discredit scientists, discredit facts, discredit every governmental organization, and then when you need them to believe you, people don't believe you. So like the Republican Party has gone out of its way to say, oh, failing New York Times, everybody's crooked, nobody's telling you the truth, vaccines are not real. So you're hearing this from official channels like RFK Jr. and like Donald Trump and like the vice president down the line. From the podium at a press briefing, you will have the media being discredited when they are giving you facts. And so that's been happening for over a decade now. And then everything becomes a conspiracy. So here's the thing on this particular deal. And I listened to an interview from Chuck Todd, former host of Meet the Press. And he explained to me the best that I've heard anyone do it, not to take anything away from Wolf Blitzer telling us about the salad and how he lost a shoe.
He was awesome.
So, thanks, Wolf. I'm glad to know that the ranch dressing was nice.
Did you hear
on
Jon
your
Stewart
salad?
thing?
Yeah, it was great.
If you haven't heard it, if you have a moment,
in the urinal and the whole deal.
Jon Stewart on Wolf Blitzer covering the event is incredible.
So, picture this, if you will, because Chuck Todd explains it the best. The largest hotel event space like this in Washington, D.C. is the Hilton. And so if you're going to go bigger than that, you go to the convention center, which is much more porous. And then, of course, Donald Trump has talked about building a ballroom, which we can get to on another day.
Well, but real quick on the ballroom, 3,000 people can't fit in the ballroom. 500 to 900 people can fit. So even if the ballroom was done, you couldn't have this event at the ballroom because there's 3,000 people at this ballroom.
Plus, the White House wouldn't allow the White House Correspondents' Dinner people to probably or even rent that place because he's anti-press because all the press is failing. So in this hotel, it's a Hilton hotel, and you may or may not have been in a venue like this before. The meeting space, so you walk into the main hotel, and they're operating a Hilton. And so there is a lobby, and there's a concierge desk, and you have the elevator stack going to your rooms. There's a bar, there's a restaurant, all that stuff, a normal hotel. Then there's a separate side where they have these meeting spaces. And in order to get to this meeting space where the White House Correspondents' Dinner was, you had to go through the main entrance, or you could come in the back entrance. There were side entrances to get into this venue. You go down 2 escalators. At the bottom of that second escalator, and the Westin down here in downtown Seattle is exactly like this. You have to go down and down and down because it's subterranean. So you go down 2 elevator spaces. At that landing, you have to go through security checkpoint 1. So at that security checkpoint was metal detectors and wands. And then you go down 2 more sets of stairs. There's another security checkpoint. And then you get into the admittance to the venue. And there is only this controlled entry and controlled exit. So if you're going to pierce through that, you have to get through 3 concentric circles of security to get down to this particular place. So I think it's been oversold a little bit of how close this shooter actually got to the president of the United States. The shooter did rent a room at the hotel. And so none of this has to do with where the venue was of the White House. If we want to do a critique here, he took the train to Washington, D.C. You do not have to go through body scanners to get onto a train. And so the weaponry that he had in a bag, he walked right out on the train just like every other person walks onto a train.
Shotgun, a pistol, and,
right.
and three
and so
knives,
if we want to examine the train security, we can, but it's not the Hilton's fault that this guy arrived with weapons, because he was able to travel through the train system of America without having to go through any sort of magtrometers or anything like that. So then he checks into the hotel room, and just like any other person, he's allowed to get a hotel room, checks into the hotel room. And so when he decides to write his manifesto and then go downstairs, he gets to that first checkpoint where you got to go through the scanner and you get wanded. That's where he got taken out. He was at least 2 floors away from where the people were having dinner. Did they hear the shots? Yes, because it's an open hallway. You go down 2 escalators, you have the mezzanine, you go down 2 more staircases, and then you go through the door. So they could hear the shooting, pop, 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 and everybody got down on the floor, and we can talk about how the security detail apparatus worked after that with the different people going and being escorted off the stage. But in terms of
or
this...
some that weren't escorted, like Cheryl
Cheryl
Hines. Yeah.
In terms of like it being presented as if the shooter was at the door that breached the door of the arena, he did not. In terms of him even being on the same physical floor as the president, he was not. It doesn't mean that this was, unexpected or it wasn't a tragic event. I understand that, but there was not the security protocol worked. So you had a situation where all the high-ranking people were there. There was Secret Service, there was the DC cops, there was the Rangers. There was like 4 or 5 different deals, because depending on if you're a president or a senator or a congressperson,
what were the Rangers
it's like not the Army Rangers. There's a different detail. There was like 4 different law enforcement branches there, because congressmen get different details than the senators. They get different details than the vice president. They get different details than the Secret Service. So the perimeter of security worked, and it held this guy to at least 2 floors and another 2 different rings of security before he could even breach the door to get into this particular venue.
People say, why is he not dead? Like if you got to fire 5 or 6 shots from him, and you are professional shooters, and he's that close, the guy doesn't have a scratch.
Hold on, let me answer that question.
Well,
do we want armed?
The reason I'm bringing this out is because this is all the hoax conspiracy stuff. So I'm just throwing that out on the table for comment.
For the same reason that a guy on an airline security doesn't start opening fire in the airplane. You don't want 10 guys firing weapons in a confined space. Like, I'm not a trained security expert. I'm pretty sure that's day one, though. Hey, if you're in a confined space with a bunch of civilians, don't just start willy-nilly shooting. So if you're able to take the person down and apprehend a suspect without incident, that's priority 1. He's the guy that already has opened fire. If you can get him down to the ground, because you want to learn, as to your point, is he part of a larger group? Is this guy the tip of the spear? Are there 19 other guys coming? Is there a bomb in his room? Are there incendiary vices on the perimeter of the hotel? Like, having him alive is better than a bunch of guys going trigger happy in a lobby of a hotel.
So let me ask you this, because this is a different question. Is it smart? Because the reason there's an Air Force One and an Air Force Two is because those 2 dudes are never supposed to fly in the same plane together, right? And we go back,
don't like each other.
Yeah, we go back to Kennedy. It's like, okay, president, vice president, they don't fly the same plane together. Everybody there, the whole cabinet was there. The president and vice president were there, and the whole hee-haw gang was there. Plus, 1,000, 1,500, I don't know, 1,800 reporters that are there. Is it smart to be in the basement of a Hilton knowing that someone has tried to take your life 2 times, and knowing that there are people in the hotel that are staying in the hotel that have not been checked by Secret Service? Because if you read Hugh Doherty's story from the Daily Beast. He was in the room next to the shooter, and he was in the room next to the shooter when the shooter was probably in there writing his manifesto, and then went downstairs. And what was interesting is the Secret Service said that this didn't have the highest priority for them when it came to all the resources that they could bring to bear on a meeting like this.
You're bringing up a technical question to a political situation.
Well,
this event is not.
You can't separate those, though.
Well, they do.
You can't. It's political.
Well, then the president and vice president should never leave the White House. Then
maybe
right. So if you're saying the security detail is so strict, then they should be cloistered at all times.
They should never be together.
And so but in the world of politics, where you're trying to score political points for a midterm election year, they are going to be out and stumping and being out in public events. And so, that's a question for them to answer. Like, I don't have an answer to that.
So you think the detail did a great job, and they did their job. So even if he had a suicide vest on and he was able to blow through 2 floors with a suicide vest, because you could take out a couple floors with a suicide vest if you had the right bombs on, or if there's 10 of you running in there, it's like, hey, just because it's the 3rd time, it's not going to happen a 4th time, because Trump wants to get together and do this in a month. The reason he wants to do this in a month because he's about to speak. And you know what he's about to say? He had prepared a speech where he's going to roast everyone in that room, because he remembers when Obama stood up there before he became president, before he came down that escalator, and Obama roasted him, and he didn't like it. And that's why he's never been back. And now they do this thing where they're like, okay, we're going to bring in a magic guy. He's not going to say anything that's controversial. So Trump is like, I'm going to go to that thing, and I'm going to do what was done to me, and I'm going to roast everybody in that room. So they're going to do this again a month from now, he says. Would you do the same thing with all the same people in the same room?
It's not my call, but I don't know what your alternative is.
Well, you're doing a podcast, and I'm just asking you.
I think
it's material, and
if they want to have events out in public, I think the security detail did what they were designed to do. The guy was stopped before he was able to do any harm.
Ron and Don's Top 5 at 5.
Number 2.
All right, story 2. King Charles is here along with his bride, the princess.
Princess Diana?
Yeah. Last time I checked, no one liked King Charles, and I didn't like him either, because we all like Diana. I have to say, over the last couple days, though, and especially when he got to stand in front of Congress, and it was a packed house, just like his mother did back in 1991, he gave one hell of a speech, and he also threw a little Magna Carta in there. And if I don't know what Magna Carta is, I'll take you back to 1215. And that basically is a principle that says, hey, when it comes to governments, even if we have kings and queens, and he's a king, he would know this, we got to be really careful that all branches of the government, that there's checks and balances. And so I thought it was very interesting,
you like him better as a king
as he
than a
was
prince?
talking about checks and balances, and he was talking about the relationship between executives, the executive branch, that the Democrats were the first one to stand up and give him a standing ovation, and the Republicans were sitting over there going, okay, we're in the Senate. If we don't stand up and clap, then it's going to look like we gave all our power away to the executive. And at the same time, we have given all our power away to the executive. So what do I do? And to their credit, everybody stood up and clapped for the king yesterday when it came to Magna Carta. The other thing that I love is, even though that he's had this bout of cancer, he can afford farm to table. Nobody else can, but he can. I mean, I don't know if you've seen
He owns all the farms.
I don't know if you've seen his real estate portfolio. Like, he's a real king, and he's a real billionaire. It's incredible the amount of real estate. Everybody thinks all those castles over there owned by the government. They're not. Some of them are, and then most of them are owned by his family, have been passed down. So evidently, Donald Trump always likes to order McDonald's for who's ever coming for a state dinner, for at least a lunch, and they're like, yeah, no McDonald's for the state dinner, and then please, whatever you do, don't step in front of the king and queen like you did last time, you jackwagon, when you came over here and you were walking around and we're shaking people's hand. I don't know if you saw him yesterday. He's behind the queen, the president is. He's waiting and waiting and waiting, and she's just taking her time, and she's just, I call it honey babying everyone, because I had a great grandmother. Everybody's honey baby. So she's just taking her time. He had enough of it, and he just cut right in front of her. He cut her off, the king off, and he was done with it. And evidently, handshaking time was over. So anyway, he's here for 4 days. He's staying across the street. He must look at like the White House and probably the Blair House across the street and go, wow, compared to all the castles I have, this place is an effing dump, right?
Ron and Don's Top 5 at 5.
Number 3.
All right, story number 3, Seattle mayor who looks terrified every time I see a video of her or a picture. I guess she got rid of her security detail, and then she was somewhere the other day where there was gunfire, which isn't great, but welcome to downtown Seattle, because there's gunfire in downtown Seattle, and that's why we need more cops, not less cops. So we need you to be a good recruiter of cops, which she is not, right? So we get this pendulum swing in Seattle all the time where we get somebody in here that's friendly with cops, law and order, and then people are like, too much law and order, let's swing the other way. And I think we're swinging the other way right now. Something that she is doing or is going to do, and we don't know where the money's going to come from, because Starbucks just left. So we're expanding our national headquarters. No, you're not. You're shutting your headquarters down here, and you're moving to Tennessee. You're moving to a red state in a place that's going to be kinder to Starbucks. And you notice when they announced the millionaire tax, within 24 hours, what did Schultz do? I'm moving to Florida. And then within a week, Starbucks, we're moving, right? So, and don't think that Charlie didn't have a hand in that. Anyway, she's saying free lunches now for all the kids that go to school, just free lunch for everyone. And also, we're going to do a better job at paying for free childcare in the city. Your thoughts on free lunch for everyone and free childcare? Well,
it's not free lunch for absolutely everyone. You still they have a formula that you run through of like what your income is as a family. Here's the thing that I've believed forever is I don't think kids should be punished for who their parents are. And this goes back to, for me, I just spent some time in Nashville where Starbucks is going to be moving with my dad. And I remember a story my dad told me when he was a little kid, and he was on assisted lunch because of some family situations that's private, and I won't go into that. And so this is obviously many decades ago. At that time, they made him, before he could eat lunch in front of his classmates, he had to stand at the garbage station and muck the plates, scrape the other kids' plates off into the garbage, and wear a little apron embarrass him in front of everybody. And if he did all the dishes, then he could eat lunch. And the humiliation that he felt from that and the scars that it left him as a little kid took a long time for him to get over. I don't know if he ever get over it. So, and it was nothing of his fault. He had no fault to bear for whether or not his family was able to give him money for lunch. And so I've always carried that story with me. And so if there's a child that is hungry, I want to err on the side of the kid. And if there's some families that sneak in there and take advantage of that system where they really could afford lunch, but they take advantage of the school system and feed their kid, that's fine by me too. Because again, it's not the kid's fault that the parent is trying to game the system. I would rather err on the side of a kid having food than it being someone that's wrapping the knuckles on a family to not give them food.
Here's where I wish she was more business savvy. I worked at the first Costco ever and used to go there on my motorcycle when I was 23 at 1:30 in the morning and stock shelves, right? Before that, when I lived in New Mexico, I worked at a Price Club, and I did the same exact thing there, and I stocked shelves. It's incredible the amount of food that we threw away. It's incredible. As soon as it reaches a certain date, that stuff goes, and you think it's all going to shelters and all that, and a lot of times it's not. You wish it was, but a lot of times it's going in the garbage. Why couldn't you go to a Costco and 4 other companies around here that are somehow connected to food and go, you know what? We want you to sponsor the 2026 and the 2027 school year program for kids because the food they get is shit. It's horrible. So I don't know why we're going to pay for these meals for kids because the meals are horrific. They are just horrific. And they've gotten worse since Michelle Obama, when she was planting the garden and doing all that, she was trying to do an example for she was trying to say, hey, we used to do victory gardens in World War II. We used to turn our lights out at night. We used to conserve things, hang on to things. Now what the garden at the White House is being used for is they went over everything that they took out of the garden and that they fed the king, right? That wasn't the intention of Michelle Obama's garden. The intention is that we could all learn to start growing our own food. And my son and I did that, and we still do that. And you do that quite a bit. But it's not just food, but it's like good food and great food. How can we get good food and great food to kids? So it's the quality of the food, and then also saying to yourself as the mayor, this money has to come from somewhere. And we're like $130 million in the hole. So where is that money going to come from? I guarantee you that there's businesses out there that want to look like heroes. We're in the land of Amazon, where anything, especially when it comes to food, you could get on your phone right now and it'll tell you, food will be at your house. I could order bananas and they will be at my house in 27 minutes. So we live in this age of tech. Why do kids have to eat such shitty food? And why do they have to be embarrassed like your father was? Like that story is a great reminder to all of us to what that's like. And I think I wish she was more business savvy, or hopefully has some business savvy people around her to go, let's go talk to the Costco's. Let's go talk to Starbucks is gone. Let's go talk to even the Boeings. Let's go. If they're going to put their name on the side of a golf tournament, I guarantee you they're going to put their name on food for kids. And let's really feed these kids and take care of these kids.
Ron and Don's Top 5 at 5.
Number 4.
All right, story number 4 in Ron and Don's Top 5 at 5. Let's talk a little bit about what you're going to be talking about coming up in the real estate show that's on right after this. We're talking about ROI, and we're talking about deferred maintenance. What is deferred maintenance? What is ROI? And what does that have to do with real estate?
Well, it's interesting. I hope people watch the video because I was actually thinking I'm going to just send this out to prospective clients because there's a misnomer, I think, in the way people think about their piece of property and what it's going to mean to them when they sell it. They think if I put $10,000 of repairs into my house, then my money that I should get back should be at least $20,000 or at least $50,000 or whatever. They think that there's a simple formula where you can plug in like the stock market. Stock market makes 8%. I'm going to put in this amount of money. It's going to go up by 8%. That means I'll have this amount of money. And so real estate is a little bit different than that, or it's a lot of bit different than that. And so we're going to go through a long form presentation on what it actually means, what is going to give you ROI, and what's just required from the marketplace. Because we have never met someone that didn't start the conversation by saying, I would like to get top dollar for my house. I can't remember one time where someone's like, this whatever we get is fine. Everybody wants to get top dollar for their house.
Except for
Peter, but we started at top dollar and then the offer came in and we didn't battle for it.
We could have gotten more money.
We could have gotten a little more.
No.
But that was later.
It was our first client ever.
That was later.
In fact, we just sold one of his friends' homes here in Ballard. I love that about him. When he looked at it and goes, and it was on day 2. We're like, don't you want to wait till offer review day? And he's like, no. That's probably what it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just go with that one.
And so,
you think it can close? Yeah. Okay, we'll take that one.
Everybody wants top dollar except maybe for Peter.
Except Peter.
And we're going to go through in depth of what it means for deferred maintenance, ROI, different types of projects and what they bring to the table. And then a different way or a little bit more sophisticated way of thinking about this when you are either buying property or selling property.
What do you tell people? And I learned this lesson when I had a Jeep truck. You remember my red Jeep truck?
Yeah.
And it was between, and I bought it myself, and I made all the payments on this Jeep truck. And I tricked it all out. And I put some big tires on it, put some big wheels on it. It didn't have a radio. That's when, like, doorknobs were iffy. Maybe you get a doorknob, maybe not.
You put a roll cage on that vehicle that could support a tank.
I did, yeah. And then we go 4x up in the mountains of New Mexico. So I was pretty hard on this Jeep truck, right? But I thought when I took it to auction, because I did all these cool things to the Jeep truck, that I was going to get all my money back, right? And I was thinking today when you were talking about this house, and we were going to sit down the other day, and the folks were like, well, we've done all these things, or we bought this house that has all these features. And I noticed when my Jeep truck went to auction that people were not willing to pay an extra dime or dollar for any of the work that I had done. But I still had this Jeep truck, and I went out and I had a lot of fun in it. I just didn't get the money back. What about in houses? If you spend money on features of homes, do you get that money back?
It depends on the feature. And so that's one of the things we're going to talk about is what features are good investments, what features are not so great investments, and what features are required. Like you don't get bonus points for having electricity. You don't get bonus points for your door being on solid. You don't get bonus points for a roof that doesn't leak. Those things are required just to be in the game.
Yeah, great. All right, let's get story number 5.
Ron and Don's Top 5 at 5.
Number 5.
Hey, story number 5, I just want to touch on in case anyone is tuning in. 2 meetings ago, well, there's a high school that my son goes to. It's the oldest high school in Seattle. It's called Lincoln High School. They don't have a field, and the school opened 7 years ago. And so we've had to bus our kids. And there's been proposals in the neighborhood. Voters have voted. They said, here's money. Let's go ahead and build a field. 81% of the voters in Seattle said, let's do it. Same levy as Memorial Stadium, which is almost done. It'll be done in early 2027. We don't even have a shovel-ready property. Like they've looked at some properties, but I went down to the city. I talked to the building folks. They're like, we don't know anything about a field for Lincoln at all. And I said, well, what about all these drawings that we see, like parks thrown around or SPS thrown around? He goes, I've never even seen those drawings. And we certainly haven't done a feasibility study, which, Ron, you know, means filtration tests and perk tests and all that stuff. And in fact, we're going somewhere this afternoon where some of those things are going on, a feasibility study. So none of that's been done. And I think what has happened with parents there is they get in and they're like, hey, let's build a field. And then your kid graduates and you run out of gas. And then it's left to the next parents. And then they pick up the mantle and they run up the hill. It's like Hamburger Hill. And then your kid graduates and you're like, it's going to take a set of parents that are like, we are going to run up Hamburger Hill. And when they tell us to turn around, we're going to keep going. It's going to take a group of parents like me that are committed to still building this field long after my son has graduated because he's never going to play on that field. So anyway, we had this meeting at Hamilton, and the meeting was actually called by Parks and SPS. The superintendent, and I'll just call him Ben, who's brand new, gets paid $425,000 a year, has a really nice parking space, and from what I can tell, a very nice person. He wasn't even going to come speak at this, which is weird because if you look at the newsletter he sends out every week, he's all over the city taking pictures with kids. And look at me, I'm the superintendent and I'm Ben. So anyway, we invited him to this meeting. He wasn't going to come. And so we're like, and I talked to someone in Parks and I said, what do we need to do? She said, and she's on board with us. She said, just start writing them letters. So we started writing them really nice letters. We said, please come. He ended up coming. Gunnar and Josiah went over and gave him a hat, a Lincoln hat, which I acquired a couple weeks ago from the team store. To his credit, he had another hat on. He put our hat on. And then he was there the whole time. He spoke for about 2 minutes. The thing I didn't love when he spoke publicly is he said, I'm here to be an observer. We don't need an observer. We need a leader. When I talked to him privately, he said, Don, you know, the really hard thing is we don't own the property. He goes, Seattle Parks owns the property, but we hold the checkbook to fix the property and invest in the property. And he says, it drives me nuts. And he said, hey, and he's a Yale guy. And he's like, hey, I'm from the East Coast. The schools own the property. And then you have the checkbook from, let's say that's a levy or whatever way the taxes were collected. He goes, we don't have that here. And he said, I just want you to know that I want to build this field. And I am here to listen to the community. And we're going to listen to everything they have to say. And that's what I think he meant by I'm here to be an observer. but I want to make a decision to build this field. What I did find out is it is up to Seattle Public Schools to make a recommendation to build this field, and they don't have a recommendation at. They had 3 different models that they shared, and they said, and they allowed people to give input on their models, which I thought was really great. But I've already been to all those meetings where everyone gave input on the models. We just didn't have the right people in the room for the last 4 years. So anyway, what we did find out is someone stood up there and said, chances are this is going to take another 3 to 4 years, which means 5 to 6. That means Lincoln High School will be open and it won't have had a field for 12 years. And it means since the time the levy was passed, 10 years later, maybe that field will be built. And we're not talking a stadium. We're just talking about fixing up a field that already exists in Green Lake, or fixing up a field that already exists.
Do you feel like some progress is made, or is your frustration still at
You know what?
all-time
I think
high?
he's going to lead on this thing. I do. I think I like his East Coast thing. Like he said, I came to observe because I think he wanted to say, hey, I'm here to listen. There were some people there that were walking around, and some of them are very, very obnoxious. They don't want anything to be done. And they were there. Probably 85% of the people there were us. It was packed. And lots of kids there for kids. And then some of the guys from the opposition came over and started talking to him. He had taken the hat off because it was getting hot in there. When he went over to talk to them, he put the hat back on. So I really feel like we got a guy that's on the side of kids and on the side of Lincoln. What I don't like is when they said, well, we're going to make a decision sometime this summer. That doesn't feel great to me. Sometime this summer. So now we'll have to hold them to sometime this summer. All right, you guys, don't go anywhere. We got a quick segment coming up, and then Felix Pinell is going to stop by. If you need us, ronanddonsitdown.com, and I'll have more. I've actually written a letter to the superintendent. He wrote a letter back to me, and I'll share it with you on next week's show. All right, see you on the other side of this.
Hey, we're happy we have a brand new sponsor here on the Ron and Don Show. It's Team Lisa with Origin Point Financing. She's a mortgage broker. When is the right time to refinance your loan?
You can never time the market, right? Everybody always wants the lowest rate, and you know what? Nobody knows. We usually don't know it was the lowest rate until it's gone. But in general, there's some benchmarks that we look at. So if you plan to stay in your home for 2 years and you can save 0.5% or more, then it's generally worth a refinance. Sometimes a little bit less time if the lender's willing to pay the cost.
So if I was 7.5 and it's at 6 now, that's a good time to start calling Team Lisa with a Y.
That's a great time to call Team Lisa with a Y.
If that's you and you're thinking, hey, maybe I should refinance, reach out to Lisa. That's teamlisawithay.com and tell her Ron and Don sent you.
Today's show is made possible by your friends Ron and Don. When you're ready to sit down and strategize about your real estate journey, schedule your time with the guys at ronanddonsitdown.com.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. You just got back from Florida. No, you got back from Nashville.
I did get back from Nashville.
How was Nashville?
It was great. My niece was getting married. I have 3 nieces. This was the final niece to get married. And it was beautiful. Like my brother-in-law's family has 70 acres outside of Nashville on this sort of, the rolling hills of the Appalachian Mountains. Just beautiful property, gorgeous ceremony. Beautiful. Everything went fantastic. I had one of the most embarrassing things that could have happened to me happen, and I wonder if you had anything similar.
Oh, wow.
So I'm there. You're getting there. We're getting there. I'm dressed up in a suit. It's hot. Someone had broken into my closet and made the suit tighter than the last time that I wore it. Which that's the only thing they did. They didn't steal anything. They just
was that your life partner?
The shirt was tighter. The jacket was tighter. The pants were tighter. It's like somehow a thief has changed my clothing.
Son of a bee.
From the suit. So I'm a little uncomfortable getting there. It's a rental car, following the map. So I arrive, and there's this couple standing there, and there's the procession and the entry table, and we're trying to figure out where we're going to sit. And you got assigned seating because we're the family, and yada yada yada. And my dad's there. My dad came up in his late 80s in the plane, and my brother had gone down to help them get there. So there's a lot of stuff on my mind.
That's awesome.
So I go over, and my sister says, "Hey, come over here and see Jim." I'm like, "Great." So I walk over. In my mind, I'm thinking that it's Jim, one of her friends that I had met years ago.
Jim from The Office.
Jim from The Office.
Yeah.
So I go over, and I'm like, "Hey, good to see you." And shake his hands, wife, good to see you. And I walk back. About 15 minutes later, someone, my sister may have pointed out, or someone pointed out to me, that was my cousin Jimmy that I hadn't seen in probably 25 or 30 years.
Oh, wow.
We spent every summer together when I was a kid. And
I thought he died.
No, his older brother died, Joe.
Joey.
So
okay.
Joseph died, but Jim was the next one down.
Okay.
And so Jimmy spent every summer with this family as a child.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize in my brain that it was Jimmy. It was Jimmy.
Yeah.
So I had to like put my tail between my legs, walk back over there. And his wife was very gracious. And I was like, I got to apologize. I was like, I did not. And once I knew it was Jimmy, then I could see that it was Jimmy.
Jimmy!
And like he looks like his dad, Ron. I'm named after his father, Uncle Ron.
Yeah.
And so like he looks like Uncle Ron, like same mannerisms. You know, it's Uncle Ron.
Did he recognize you, do you think?
Well, he knew what the deal was. So he didn't tell anybody. He surprised. My sister made contact with him and said, this would be a great surprise if you would come to the weddings. My mom loves you and haven't seen you in years. This is probably going to be one of the last times they travel to this part of the country. And would you guys make the drive to come here? And so he lives in South Carolina. Him and his wife drove over. So I had to walk up and be like, Jim, I am so sorry that I did not recognize you. I thought that you were Jim from The Office. And so he could not have been immediately forgave me, like made it into a little joke for the rest of the day. But like, I don't know how. I'm usually pretty good with faces.
Yeah.
It went right over my head.
Sometimes at a wedding, though, you got to get a little, like I appreciate New Orleans because when you go stand in the church, they're actually handing out mint juleps. And so even if you met Jimmy and you didn't remember him, everybody's still a friend because they're loaded on mint juleps. And so everyone seems like a cousin Jimmy.
We hadn't got to the old fashions yet.
Okay.
So that part was very, very embarrassing.
25 years?
At least 25.
You get like a 20-year buffer. Once it gets to 25, people even, it should be like when you go to your senior reunion, when you go to reunion 10, 20, 30, when you get to 25, 30, you should start to have to wear a picture of yourself back in the day, or at least a picture of the car you drove or something to kind of, because everybody is having, you're having cognitive development issues like everybody else. I mean,
that was super embarrassing, but the ceremony was great. I'm super happy for my niece. I hope they have, a great life and their marriage is really great.
And are there like cowboy boots and stuff at a Nashville wedding?
Not in this. Some people wore boots to the ceremony, but like the actual wedding party was
it outside?
Yep.
Did someone sing?
Nobody sang in the ceremony, but they had a huge tent with great meal and dance floor. Here's the thing that's
my
funny
favorite
to me.
thing about weddings is when the really bad sister, who's been practicing this song for 4 years, comes up and just belts out
we didn't have
something
that
after they've had a few hot toddies.
Yeah,
that is my very favorite thing because even if it's not quite on key, it's from the heart.
That didn't happen. Here's my observation that I think, and people email me if I'm wrong on this. I don't care what the wedding is or how devout people in the family are religiously, or you could be at an Amish wedding. Sooner or later, the DJ is going to devolve to back that A up, and from the windows to the walls, and the bridesmaids were there for it.
They were.
Like, so I'm like, trying to explain to my 86-year-old mother. Okay, so windows to the walls. It's an architecture song. Yeah. Don't worry about that second part.
What was the song for the bride and the groom? Was it The Broken Road by Rascal Flatts?
They actually, this was, you just bring up a good point.
Thank you.
This was the same.
Do it, I don't get credit for it.
Same location that my sister got married at 25 years earlier. Oh. I sang Broken Road. And so their walk-up music for the bride was an instrumental version of Broken Road.
Because you sang it. that you're...
Well, just so they know that it's a family song and that it happened. We're in the exact same spot because there's a swimming pool now where they got married.
That's cool.
But the same exact location 25 years
What was
later.
the best food and what was the worst food?
Their catering was fantastic.
Oh, it was.
They had
You're a tough grader. It
chicken,
must have been great because
ribs.
you're a tough grader.
Oh, yeah. This was not a small budget affair.
How did your suit fit the next day?
Luckily, I got to take that off and put it right back into the zip bag. But I'm recommitted to dropping some lbs after that. Dude,
how old are Bob and Alice now? 85, 86?
86, maybe 87. I think
That's
year.
pretty cool that they. That's really cool. Your dad came that way.
Yeah,
because
it's
it'd be really easy to sit home and go, no. After all the health issues I've faced, I'm not getting on.
And
the plane.
shout out to my
brother.
He flew to Florida
from New Mexico,
and then got them on another plane to Nashville. Flew him back to Florida, and then he flew back to New Mexico.
Your
so good for him.
He's a saint.
Yeah, he's very good.
And he loves Coors beer.
Yeah.
Yep.
He loves Rainier too.
Yep. We'll see you on the other side of this.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. Don't forget, if you need us, Ron and Don, sitdown.com. Guess who's sitting down with us right now? Felix Bonnell is here. We know him for our Days of Kyle Radio. He's a great local historian. He also runs a radio station called Spacecraft 101, right?
I don't run the radio station.
Is it Spacecraft?
It's called Space 101.
Space 101.
And it's on space101.org, space101fm.org. It's a great little signal, mix of music and stuff, and really great live shows like mine, Cascade of History, Sunday nights, 8 o'clock Pacific time. We do live interviews with people all over the Pacific Northwest, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, British Columbia. We do live remotes. We were just in Issaquah last week. I learned that from you.
Yeah.
You guys do those great live remotes. You used to them and in the toy drives and stuff. And I thought, I want to be like Ron and Don.
Cool, man.
We did it at Ivers a month ago. We took it to Yakima. We do old school radio the way commercial radio won't do anymore because we love how radio connects people.
What do you see? Because we're in the business mostly of restoring old homes, right?
Yeah, you guys do amazing work.
Yeah, so I really love restoring old homes.
Yeah.
And I love that every home has a story, right? Mm-hmm. In all my homes, I've gone down and I've looked at the microfiche, and like I own this little house at the top of Queen Anne, and in the back was a little shack that they started using for storage. And then come to find out, when I looked at the microfiche, the little shack in the back was actually the main house. The cool? Land out front, they did a little farming, and the house that eventually ended up front on 3rd Street used to be over on 2nd Street. And they moved it over to 3rd. And you're like, how did they do this back in the early 1900s? It blows my mind.
Do you ever just type your address into a newspaper database and search like different variations because they've changed the address form a little bit? You can find like when there were fires at your house or people died there or there was stuff. I've done that with a couple houses I've lived in, and stuff always comes out of the Seattle Times database of interesting people or things that happened in the house you lived in just by knowing the address.
Yeah. So is the city in this region is kind of turning? It's very millennial. It's very young. You go to a block party. It's true. Like a block party where my son's 16. I remember the first block party because that's when I moved to Queen Anne. Mm-hmm. And I was the youngest guy there, and I had a baby, and nobody had kids. Mm-hmm. And now that whole neighborhood is turned. My neighbors have moved away. Many of them, some have moved to Puerto Rico, some to Mexico, some to Maui, some to Boise, some have passed away. Mm-hmm. But they've made a lot of money in selling these homes. And the one thing I love about my neighborhood now is it's very international. So very big families, generational living, lots of kids, which is really great. Mm-hmm. And so you go to the block party now, I'm the older guy with the older kid, and there's lots of younger people there, right, from all over the world because they've all come to work on tech. And at the same time, I worry a little bit that we have just turned into a culture of we're looking at our phones, we're ordering an Uber, we're ordering some Thai food. Yeah. It's very transactional. It's very transactional. Yeah. And it feels like my neighborhood has become a little transactional. A little bit, and I'm afraid that's where Seattle's going as we look at a lot of the things that are being torn down and a lot of the things that are being rebuilt that look the same. It's becoming, or the architecture around here even, it's becoming very transactional to me.
I like it when things change. Otherwise, it would be very dull. If nothing ever changed, there'd be no need for history because we'd be stuck and mired in it. Seattle is changing very rapidly right now, and in a lot of ways, that's really good because people want to be here. bottom line, it's great that people want to move to Seattle, and that's hard. It's tough to buy a place sometimes because so many people want one in. That's a good problem to have, right? But the great cities of the world that I've visited, they're aware of that constant change, which is just inevitable. But there's some through line that continues through. I'm glad the block parties are still happening. I mean, people may have their phones, but at least they're getting together.
Yeah.
And people like to congregate. And if they don't congregate in their neighborhoods, they congregate in public spaces. And so the focus a lot of history that I think about are publicly owned places and spaces which we as citizens all have a stake in. We all own it as taxpayers, right? It's our place, whether it was dear old Memorial Stadium, which you and I went back and forth about. And obviously the new stadium is going to be pretty cool, and they've saved the memorial wall. I'm willing to move on. I get when I'm licked. I understand that.
I think if it wasn't for you, and let's talk about Memorial Stadium because I want to talk about that. I think you saved the memorial wall. I don't even think people knew it was there. And everyone that I talked to, and our team at Lincoln, because we don't have a home field.
I know.
That was for schools that don't have a home field, that's your home field.
That's home field, yeah.
And then they decided to tear that apart while my son's going to high school, but nonetheless, maybe his senior year I'll get to play there. But explain Memorial Stadium for those that don't know, and the names on the wall, because nobody knows about those names. And I would ask my son, I would ask the kids there, I would ask the coaches, do you even know why it's named Memorial Stadium? And the coaches that are coaching kids there, what a life lesson. You're always looking for that speech you'd love to give your team.
Yeah.
And what about these names on the wall of these kids that went and served and never came home?
And see, that's the bigger failure, if we step back even from Memorial Stadium, is a failure to understand where we live, and failure of organizations that I used to work for to explain the significance of places. In some ways, it's great to have, like, your son playing football at Memorial Stadium, not have any idea why it's there or care why it's there. It's like, that's kind of the point of it, actually. Because you go back to World War II, a bunch of guys who went to Seattle public schools fought in World War II, probably thousands, if not tens of thousands. 800 of them died during World War II in action or accidents in combat or whatever. And when the war was over, they said, let's build a stadium to honor that sacrifice. And let's not just put up a statue of a soldier and see it once a year on Veterans Day or whatever, Memorial Day. Let's build something we can use all the time, that people will sit in the stands, participate in sports, watch their kids or whatever, because the guys made that sacrifice. Those 800 guys, men and women, made that ultimate sacrifice so that we can do stuff like play football and not think about Nazis or not think about fascism. We won. We can actually celebrate by not even thinking about it. And so the failure of the Seattle Public School District to maintain that place over the years, failure of City of Seattle, or failure of people like me to tell the story well enough, that stadium should never have even been threatened. It should have been better maintained, number one.
It was not well maintained.
No, and it was opened in 1947. The memorial wall came 4 years later.
Is that right?
There was this whole movement at the end of World War II to create living memorials. Like, let's not just put up a statue of a soldier. Let's build a highway, or let's put up a stadium or a school, and let's have the thing we use, the very practical thing that we need, because it's the baby boom and everything's going crazy. Let's build practical stuff to honor the memory by using it every day. And so that was great. In some ways, it did its job perfectly. Everyone forgot what it was about. It did its job. It hosted the very first live broadcast of television in Seattle in 1948. Is that
right?
It was the headquarters during the World's Fair. The opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies of the World's Fair in 1962 were there. All these amazing bands played there, going back to Heart in the 1970s and grunge bands in the 90s, Grateful Dead in the 1990s. Beautiful multi-purpose stadium before that word even existed, right? And so because it's poorly maintained, and there's all this money now to do stuff like, build new shiny things, this money gets funneled in and this project happens. And I know it's going to be a gorgeous, beautiful stadium. I know the wall is being preserved. Whether I had anything to do with saving the wall, I don't know. I do know that the first report that the public school district in the city issued about 10 years ago about the future of the stadium, redeveloping something new there, made no mention whatsoever of the wall. Yeah. And that made me mad. Because I've talked to people who have relatives on that wall. I know a guy named, my friend Sean, his Uncle Pat's on that wall. And it's each name on there represents a sacrifice. And the fact the stadium was built to be used that way and now doesn't exist anymore. Now we just have the wall. It misses the whole point. Yeah. I'm glad the names are there. Sure, we remember people, of course. But that whole notion of, here's the actual stands that the relatives of some of those dead soldiers sat in when it was dedicated in 1947. It's all gone.
Did they take the stands out?
Everything's gone. The stadium, they said they were renovating it. It was demolished. They demolished. It was not renovated. They saved the wall. They demolished everything else.
Kind of like what we saw at the White House. We're gonna go ahead and renovate,
Yeah,
and then the next thing you know, it's gone.
With the Memorial Stadium, they went through the process of having it, designated non-significant and not being a landmark. I mean, there's a lot of politics around historic preservation in Seattle. For whatever, I'm not sure why.
But in 2027, when it reopens, the wall will be there.
The wall will be there, and it looks gorgeous. And if you remember, sad thing, they built that parking lot right, where you could park your car right against the wall of names,
and you couldn't see the names.
And the fountains were filled with trash, and the bushes are all overgrown.
Everything's
and stuff.
overgrown. Yeah.
It was the fact that the school, and I love Seattle Public School District. I love public agencies. I think I want them to do better. I have high hopes for them, and it sounds like you're getting good success with what you're trying to do for Lincoln High School. But
and Ron and I are going to talk about that probably on next week's show. But we did have a big rally there on Saturday.
That's great.
The superintendent actually showed up. The people that are supposed to build these fields showed up, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people showed up, and a lot of it was our kids. And it was kids that will never play on this field, but they said they're determined to make sure that generations of kids behind them play, and they're like, we know you'll continue to bus us, but we're going to make sure for the 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old coming up from all these 12 feeder schools that this field gets built. Yeah. So,
and we live in a city where people made sacrifices like that for us. I mean, Seattle Center, it was built before I was born. I go there all the time. The waterfront that we just built now, that's going to be enjoyed for hundreds of years, probably.
Yeah.
That's what a good city does. You think about the future. It's that Margaret Mead, plant trees under which you won't sit under for shade because you're going to be dead, but someone will enjoy them. You got to be planting seeds all the time.
Yeah. All right, tell us about another story. It's in the news, and what do you call the? Is it what is it called? Is it there's some kind of watch that you have going on right now?
Oh, the Daily Gas.
The Daily Gas.
Yes.
What is going on with the Daily Gas right now? Felix Bunnell, local historian. You got to tell us what's going on. What's going on here?
Everyone knows and loves Gasworks Park. Right?
Everyone
it's one of Seattle's most popular parks. It's in that Heath Ledger movie. It's got these incredible location on the north end of Lake Union, beautiful views of the city skyline, the water and everything. But it's an industrial site, and it was a place where they cracked coal and eventually petroleum to turn it into natural gas. From the early 1900s to the late 1950s. Became derelict. A city bought the property to build a park there. And a local landscape architect named Rich Hagg, who's since passed away, I worked a lot with him about 20 years ago. He had the idea that rather than mow everything down and put up like tennis courts and picnic tables, save some core of that industrial operation, those old gas cracking towers, the ladders, the pipes, all that rusty industrial stuff, save that as the centerpiece of the park to honor Seattle's industrial past and to sort of provide that contrast between beautiful Lake Union, beautiful skyline, and this big rusty old oily thing sitting there in the middle of the real estate. I mean, as a real estate guy, I'm sure you would have called for Gasworks to be demolished right away and put townhomes up probably 50 years ago, right?
I never put townhomes up.
No,
that's a good idea.
So 55 years ago, when Rich Hagg was first proposing the idea of Gasworks Park, people thought he was bananas. They're like, is this guy crazy? But he was able to persuade the city council that was the right thing to do. And it became this international award-winning showplace. People come from all over the world, from other cities, to see what they did at Gasworks and then replicate it in their own cities where there's some industrial wasteland or some odd kind of like piece of equipment that's not used anymore, and they build a park around it. And it creates this unique, distinctive anyway, historical treasure. And that's the way Gasworks has been for 50 plus years.
Yeah, my son and I, we always have fun on a nice day like today. We'll get on our bikes, ride off Queen Anne. We go to Gasworks.
Yep.
We'll sit there. We'll watch the boats go by. We'll grab a picnic lunch. When he was younger, we'd fly kites there. And certainly during the 4th of July, if you're out there on a boat and you're looking back at Gasworks, or if you're at Gasworks and you're looking back on the water, it is spectacular. So I'm glad that they did that. There's been an issue, though, with people dying at Gasworks and climbing up on that gear. So that's the reason why we're talking about this today.
Yeah,
right?
So going back 20 years, there have been multiple people who have ignored the no trespassing signs, climbed the fence, and then sadly, tragically got badly injured, or I think 3 people have died. And it's just, nobody wants any parent to go through that. It's usually younger people who have died.
Yep.
Nobody wants any family to suffer that. I mean, there's people post online about, it's just Darwin, it's like, I don't condone any of that. I think it's that those families have gone through tragedies and nobody wants to.
So the city's like, we'll keep the gear kind of, but
we'll pull away all the ladders.
We're going to take the ladders off.
Even though there's a fence.
And you don't like that, right?
Well, here's what I don't like. This back in the fall, the Parks Department, who owns Gasworks Park and who's responsible for taking care of it, and it is a city landmark. 20 years ago, it was made a city landmark, which means it's protected by city ordinance because of these things, like those ladders and stuff. It's part of what makes it significant. So parks, when they want to make a change, they have to get permission from the Landmarks Preservation Board. We'll try and make this quick. So they come to the Landmarks Preservation Board with a presentation that says, here, we want permission to remove all the ladders, the railings, the catwalks, all the stuff that makes it attractive to people who want to try to climb it. They use the word appurtenance. It's some bizarre vocabulary word for all those things I'm talking about here. So the Landmarks Preservation Board said, okay, you're asking for a lot. We recognize the safety issues. We want to work with you, but we need more information. Can you be more specific about which parts you want to remove? Could you come up with kind of a larger plan? Because Gasworks has been here for 50 years as a park. It's going to be here for a while. What if you came up with a larger historic preservation plan so we can achieve the safety goals that you want to achieve, but also achieve the historic preservation goals that are part of the city ordinance? So parks, in a lot of people's opinion, they came back for a second meeting and they didn't bring any answers. Nothing had really changed.
I've been to one of their board meetings, and it's mostly people picking their nose, and they're looking at their watch because a lot of them are volunteers, and they're like, when the F do I get out of here?
I mean, this is park staff, like planning staff and facility staff. And I listened in, I think, maybe 2 or 3 of these meetings where parks came back essentially saying the same thing with the same diagrams. And they didn't provide a historic preservation plan. They didn't really respond to any of the questions the Landmarks Preservation Board commissioners had asked. And I guess this probably sounds really like minute. It sounds kind of bureaucratic, but that's how you do it. These are all volunteers on this Landmarks Board. And if something is a historic landmark because of these reasons, their job is to ask the tough questions, even if it's the city, because lots of private landowners have to do this as well. So if the city comes and wants to do something, they can't just roll over because it's a city. So they ask these questions. Another meeting a couple months ago, same kind of thing. Meanwhile, a local group of architects, landscape architects, historic preservationists said, we see the need for this historic preservation plan. We'll do it for you, City of Seattle. Work with us. We'll get grant funding. We'll get experts. We'll come up with a way to guarantee that Gasworks is preserved decades, if not centuries into the future. We'll do that plan that the Landmarks Board is asking for. Parks said no thanks. And then meanwhile, Department of Construction and Inspections, a group you're probably familiar with,
Tim,
they stepped in at the end of March and said, hey, Parks, that's a hazard. You've got to remove that stuff. They essentially ordered Parks to remove the pieces that Parks had asked permission to remove, a move that the Seattle Times described as the city sidestepping one of its agencies.
Yeah, and
so it makes the credibility drop way down.
Construction would never do that. Somebody got on the phone and told construction, you're going to do this, and they did it. Because that's how it works.
I don't know how it happened. I don't know. It might not even be malicious. It might have been a natural.
I doubt it's malicious.
It might have been a natural thing. Like,
I think it's insurance. And it's like, hey, if somebody else falls off there and calls us, at some point you're going to have a hard time insuring it, I would imagine. Yeah.
Well, the city's self-insured. But in the middle of it, they're doing this process. These volunteer landmarks boards are asking, landmark board members are asking parks for information. They're being sincere and mature and in their ask for parks to respond. Parks doesn't really take it very seriously from my perspective. And so this process, as though it's muddled and slow, is underway. So DCI, Department of Construction and Inspection, kind of drops in the middle of it and blows it all up.
Yeah. So this week there's because I follow you on Facebook. It's a great follow. Fence has gone up and they're taking the ladders down. Is that right?
Started yesterday morning. I was there when they cut the first ladder and caught it on video dropping to the ground. I just
how many other intrepid reporters were there?
Well, let's see. There was me. No, to be honest, Channel 13, KCPQ, they were there. They had a live camera set up.
Good for them.
Yeah, guy named Dante there. I love this. It's fun talking to other media, but it's usually me at these things. Why is that? There's some coincidence. I'm always the only one at these things.
So to put a bow around that story real quick, so most of the gear is still going to be there. There's just not going to be ladders that you can climb.
No, they're removing most. I mean, they're the big tanks, the cracking towers. They're going to be stripped of everything on the sides. So when you look at it now and you see the catwalks with like grass hanging off it, you see sort of a decaying industrial landmark, which is what it is. It's going to look like this anodyne, just a bunch of weird tanks and stuff. It's going to look very different. Will it be safer? Probably, perhaps, who knows? Will the historical part of it have been seriously damaged? Yes. And that wouldn't have happened had the city allowed this process to continue, if parks had taken it seriously, if they'd allowed this local group to create a historic preservation plan. It could have really been a really cool win-win-win or whatever the cliche would be. But it got blown up by the city deciding, no, we're not going to wait for it. And that's just really a shame.
That is a shame. Finally, big day.
Finally, I'm just getting warmed up.
Big day in the Ron and Don Nation, right? What
It was on this very day.
On this day.
What's the date today? I forget what it is. April 29th, 2026.
My older brother's birthday, yeah.
Oh, happy birthday, older brother.
Yeah.
So on this day, back in 2006 or 2006, what we used to say back in the day, I think?
That's right.
There was a little notice in the Post-Intelligencer, which used to cover the local radio industry around here, back when we had a local radio industry around
Back
here.
when we had a real Post-Intelligencer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it said that those knuckleheads who have been doing late nights on Cairo, those Ron and Don characters, are going to start doing 4 to 7 on weekdays come May 1st.
Really?
So May 1st, a couple days from now, 2 days from now, right? That's the anniversary when you went to drive time on the big blowtorch, mouth of the Northwest, KIRO, 7:10 a.m.
Yeah. Most people don't know we wouldn't have taken that night job if we didn't have the afternoon job. Like, we already knew we had it. But we wouldn't. Yeah, that's the only reason we took it. We would have not. We could have gone lots of other places with the pedigree we had at that point in our radio careers, and plus working down in New Orleans and doing all those stringer calls I did. We got offers from Boston to Chicago. And even KOA radio, and the Mouth of the South invited us to stay down in New Orleans. But the Mouth of the South was a sister station of Cairo at the time.
WWL, right?
Yeah, WWL. And so we were on here a lot, and we always wanted to come back here. And I'm like, Ron, we can't do nights. We're not going to, you can't get paid in radio to do nights. And we're like, well, we could go back there and do it for months, but not years. So that was the deal that we made with Tom Clendenny when we came back. And then I don't know where Ron slept. I went out and bought a $3,000 Honda, which I made a big mistake driving down the I-5 corridor because this motorcycle came alongside me. I started goofing off with the motorcycle. And you know how sometimes you slow way down and you brake them? He came up and I just got this car, a $3,000 Honda Civic. And he came up and he had this in his, you know, he must do this a lot because you couldn't see, there was no tag on the back of his bike. And he took off the driver's side mirror, and then he waited for me to go by, and he came up the interstate, and he took off my other mirror. And there's not a damn thing that I could do. Those are my and then I remember driving to work to Cairo with no mirrors.
Nice.
And I couldn't afford to fix the mirrors because we lost a lot of stuff in Katrina. I'm like, man, I cannot wait till I move to drive time, and I get to put 2 mirrors back on my car.
And you guys like it sort of metaphorically knocked the mirrors off the sides of Cairo when you got there. But
we did.
It was such a breath of fresh air. It was so different than anything that had been on that station in my entire life listening to it. I mean, it's just been very quiet news and sort of, you know, that Jim French midday. You guys blew it up in a way that was so cool.
Yeah. We got rid of the phone calls.
Yeah.
We got rid of the point counterpoint.
Yeah.
You talk, we all argue. You talk, we all argue. Hour 3, you talk, we all argue. We got rid of that. We incorporated women. We thought women's voices were really important, and then we brought an ensemble because what we learned in whether we're doing rock radio or whether we were doing top 40 radio, whether we're doing we started here at KJR just doing a sports show. Anytime you can build a collaboration of people, and the thing that's really cool, and Ron and I look back on our radio careers, a lot of our producers and people that work for us, they're all big stars doing other things now because we were shoulders for them to stand on, and we needed I give a lot of credit to like Gas and Graz and those guys at KJR. They always, and we're just the weekend guys, they always made us feel like we were a part of the gang there, right? And they were shoulders for us to stand on. Always coaches us up, always singing our theme song on their other shows, always promoting us, which is really great. And if it wasn't for the T-Man here, if the T-Man's not here and he doesn't tell me about the Raider job because he was offered that and we didn't have that relationship with Rob, we would have never gotten out of here. So then we went down there, and then KJR FM called us and said, we want you to come back. And we're like, but we're already under contract down in San Francisco. So we always wanted to come back, and I'm so appreciative of our time at Cairo. I'm so appreciative that for the rest of my life they're going to pay me, which I really appreciate. And I also appreciate just a lot of the women there that became stars that were willing to. I remember getting called into an office one time, and there was a program director there, and it's like the women at the top and the bottom of the hour. They're the newscaster. They're there to give the news. We don't want to hear their opinion. And I'm like, okay. And then I just kept doing it my way, and he got fired.
Yeah.
Felix,
Can I
yes.
say one last thing? You guys brought the audience in and created a community that was. There's nothing like it on local radio anymore. At between 3 and 6 or 3 and 7, you can't find anywhere where there's people who are live and who care about where they live, the world, and everybody else, and kind of bring this kind of party.
And we brought we brought Cause Radio, and it all started when we were down in San Francisco. One of our listeners, who was a mover, was standing in line, and he jumped a guy that had walked into a Bank of America to rob the bank, and the robber took the gun out and he shot him in the head. So that's where Cause Radio started, and we raised enough money to take care of him for the rest of his life. He would live another 8 years. He didn't have any insurance. You couldn't go on like a GoFundMe. There was no internet. We raised all that money on air, and we took care of him for the 8 years that he did live. So
you guys had a great run at Cairo. It was cool to be a small part of that along the way.
Too, man. Yeah,
thank
you. Had a great run too. And now we're having a great run together here on the Ron and Don Show. Felix Pennell, great job today. How can people get in touch with you?
Go to cascadeofhistory.org. That's so you can get to the podcast, show information about the radio shows, our upcoming live remotes all over the Pacific Northwest. We get out. We're the only radio show that still loves people, loves to meet people in their neighborhoods.
Yeah, love it. Hey, you guys, thanks for listening to this edition of the Ron and Don Show. We do appreciate it. Don't forget, coming up after this, we have our real estate only show, and Ron's going to be talking about ROI, like how much money do I spend on a house, and how much money do I get out of that house, and is a house really a piggy bank, or is it a drain on my finances? Ron will have a lot to say about that as Ron explains ROI when it comes to homes, work we should do. He'll explain deferred maintenance, some other things as well. All right, and also next week we'll talk a little more about our meeting at Lincoln and at Hamilton, as that story is still developing. As you know, just like we did at Cairo, getting the field at Cleveland built, we've been working real hard to get the field at Lincoln built. And of course, I'm doing that because I coach there. My son goes there, and my son will never play there. I will never coach there. It's for generations of kids, so it's really for them. All right, head up, shoulders back. Matt, thanks today. He's Ron. He's Felix. I'm Don. Gunner's our station voice. Charlie's our station dog. You keep your head up and your shoulder back. Till next time, you've been listening to the Ron and Don Show, only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Thanks for listening to the Ron and Don Show. Please hit subscribe.